Hi, I'm Connor Lucken, and this is Lessons Learned Buying Salvage. I'm currently building a Thatcher CX4, and I needed an engine and avionics, so it seemed reasonable to possibly look for a damaged experimental aircraft to source components from. The opportunity arose just spontaneously. I was searching online on the forums, and I happened to see a good possibility at 9035 Echo Kilo, which was located a mere 2 hours away from me in the south side of Fort Worth. I live on the north side of the DFW Metroplex, so it made a lot of sense to make this purchase. We drove out there to do an initial inspection. It's definitely beyond repair. That was not going to be fixed. So that was going to be scrapped. At the time of the initial inspection, we only saw that one gear leg was bent, but it turned out upon closer inspection that both gear legs were actually damaged. The wing panels were in reasonably good shape, although there are problems with reusing wing spars because of Sonic's legal terms of use. So that's problematic. You go in with the assumption that they're going to get scrapped, and the fuselage was really beyond repair. So there were good avionics. The engine was in good shape, and bits and pieces here of electronics could be scrapped. So everything seemed pretty reasonable. I decided to take the plunge and make the purchase. My initial thought was that because it was a possible prop strike on a VW engine, you replace the cam gear, you replace the crankshaft, naturally the hub too, just immediately, no questions asked. That's the point of using a VW engine if something goes wrong. Parts are affordable, and for the price of a cylinder really on a Continental or Lycoming, you can put a new crank and hub in it, which is great. It took about 3 weeks to disassemble the Sonics. The engine came off in about the first 2 or 3 days, so it really wasn't a hassle. Most everything on the Sonics is easy to reach, and since the fuselage was a loss to get to some of that stuff that was tucked behind the turtle deck, the fuselage panels were cut open and flipped up, so I had easy access to everything. And as soon as that engine came off, it went on a nice engine stand from Harbor Freight. So it could sit there and could be wheeled inside the proper inside machine shop. So it wasn't sitting in the garage. It was actually in another layer of the building in a climate controlled facility. I really only have one complaint about the AeroV engine. It's as follows. There's a plate that holds a top mounted oil cooler to the case, and the I believe it's two or three of the bolts that go through the oil cooler plate and into the case. Those bolts are recessed, and they're recessed into a hole with a diameter of 0.61 inches. Well, a standard 7/8 inch socket has a diameter externally of 0.625, which means I had to take material off of a perfectly good brand new 7/16 inch socket from Lowe's. So that was about an extra $5 that I didn't plan on spending. And I was kind of unhappy about having to do that. I did check online to see if anybody else had had this problem, and I couldn't find any other people complaining about this. So maybe mine is a dud. I have no idea, but it was frustrating. When I was tearing down the engine, I removed the heads, and I had a bit of trouble getting the heads off, but it wasn't necessarily a huge ordeal. When I pulled the heads off, I immediately noticed something wrong. The number three cylinder in that number three cylinder, the piston looked awful. That's not how a piston is supposed to look. And you can see there that it's not perfectly round. There's material that's worn away. And you say, oh, this is bad. So when the cylinder came off and I got a better look at all the way around on the piston, I realized pretty quickly that it had been run way too hot. And on a VW engine, number three cylinder is the furthest back. It gets the least amount of air, and it's always where you're going to have problems keeping your temps down on a VW engine. And you can see how it actually burned through the piston and left this nice little piece of crud floating around in the case. I decided that since it would be probably 12 to 24 months until I am ready to test run this engine, that it would be best not to rebuild it at this time. So if I'm going to wait that long, I need to spray it down with a corrosion inhibitor. And I did some research and I found I was originally planning on using Bow Shield, and I found that the marine people had reported LPS3 is slightly better at saltwater corrosion, and saltwater corrosion is not a concern in North Texas. However, I live and work in Rhode Island, so that means I do need to worry slightly about it. And I sprayed it down with LPS3 after a good cleaning in mineral spirits. When I had first pulled off the heads, I did not see anything wrong with them. And when I came back to spray them down with LPS3, I realized that I had somehow missed something really important around the hole for the secondary spark plugs on the number 3 cylinder, where that one that ran hot, I was missing a lot of material. And that was an indication that it was time to also get rid of these heads and order new ones. So, in summary, I bought a salvaged aircraft, which was a learning experience. I took it apart. I guessed completely wrong. The engine would need substantially more. There was a lot of stuff that I didn't see, but I also budgeted for it. And, in the end, it's all okay. And I have the satisfaction of knowing that I'm going to put something back into the air and this little engine can continue flying and hopefully provide me some real enjoyment on my little Thatcher CX4 when it's finished.